Welcome back. It is a very good morning wherever you are, wherever you're watching this from. I just want to welcome back both on this particular class. I need you to feel part and parcel of this particular work that we've been dearly and diligently following through. In this particular, I like to call it the uncharted rather, waters or the uncharted territories. But here I am, and I'm going to take you through. But in this particular episode, we're going to be looking at the thematic concerns in Fathers of Nations. What are some of the key major concerns that Paul B. Vitta is trying maybe to share with his audience out there, and how relevant is the title, The Fathers of Nations, to the themes, even as they are suggested in the novel. Buckle up, brace, and let's do this one together. Now, that one thing, in case you're coming across this particular content, it is your first time, a good friend of yours recommended you to this channel, or you bumped across it accidentally, do this. A subscription, rather. A subscription, what it does is that you'll be updated. You'll be the first person to be notified of our future updates and our future uploads. Leave me a comment down the comment section. That motivates me to keep on doing this, and of course share it with good people, especially those ones that you know that this work is of or will be of value and of significance once they get hold of it. Let's dive into the work itself. The themes this time around is the themes. Let's start with some definition of terms there. First of all, what is a theme? Good learners, a theme is an idea that recurs in or pervades a work of art, of literature. A theme could also be a subject of discourse, discussion, meditation, composition, or a topic. Moreover, a theme can also be seen as a central idea in a piece of writing or other works of art. Further, in a contemporary literary studies, that is nowadays literary studies, a theme can also be seen as a central topic, subject, or message within a narrative or work of art. In addition, most common understanding of theme is an idea or a point that is central to a story. Along with plot, character, style, and setting, theme is considered as one of the key components of a work of art. The following are, of course, some of the explored themes in the novel that I have put them together. Not all of them. We're going to do maybe a couple of those themes in this episode, and the others will follow in our subsequent episodes that will follow this immediately after this. In Fathers of Nation, the theme of poor leadership is eminent. It comes out evidently. So let's give it a little bit of comment here and there on how this poor leadership, poor leadership has been portrayed or purportedly brought out from the novel. Poor leadership is one of the main themes in the novel. African leaders are portrayed as people who cannot give a sense of direction to their counties. Sorry. Instead, they are shown as flawed human beings who cannot rise to the challenges of their times. They are people experimenting with various ideological standpoints or positions originating from different places. They were to discuss Way Omega but found nowhere. Path Alpha finds its way on the agenda and is passed as a way forward. The novel or the book goes ahead to portray how dysfunctional most African countries are. The leadership in the African content is poor, insincere, and out of touch with the happening of the reality on the ground. The so-called presidents at the summit have very little to share. The confusion is too much and the agenda not clear. No wonder the summit ends in disarray. Unfortunately, in their hopelessness, the citizens continue to entertain a leadership that is blind to their plight. Therefore, the Fathers of Nations are meeting at a place called Banjul, that's the capital city of Gambia, just to fulfill their calendar needs. Their meeting is jumbled up and predetermined by a few of them who hold the meeting hostage. Mistrust among the presidents thus Fathers of Nations, is rife. Fight breaks out after a disagreement in the summit. The chair of the summit seems to be quite subjective. He does not give room to dissenting voices from summiteers such as Minister T. Zinto. In the eyes of a CEO, Professor Kimani's wife, poor leadership has translated to poor roads, which in the long run have aggravated accidents. We only learn of this through a CEO's perspective, point of view. His only daughter dies through an accident. Consequently, desperation sets in, leading to a divorce. The leader of Comrade Melusi's group is sacked because of coming from the Ndebele tribe, while the country's leader comes from the populous Shona. In Zimbabwe, all those from the southern side, that is Ndebele, whom the leader construes are perceived to be against the government and are wiped or consequently wiped out. If the government perceives them to be against, or they are construed to be against, therefore they are literally wiped out. And we have Pastor Chineke Chiamaka is arrested and put in police custody for preaching about the government's failure to deal with the issues bedeviling the nation. When he is later on release, he is banned from preaching. The heads of state picked President Bangura, who had said that he would not look at two documents, as chairman of a committee that is to look at the document and provide direction. That is the end of that particular point, the theme of poverty, the theme of poor leadership. Let's get into our second theme that evidently comes out clear: the poverty as a theme in the Fathers of Nations. Poverty as a theme in Fathers of Nations. Now, the novel also paints or portrays a devastating picture of people on a knife's edge of daily survival. International imperialistic networks of control have captured and imprisoned the continent. African countries are sucked into meaningless laws with international financial institutions. These development loans have unrealistic demands. As a result, the continent continues to sink into the abyss of poverty. It is in Africa where land people are impoverished and made beggars. This is a society that does not value knowledge but cherishes ignorance. Professor Kimani joins the University of Nairobi directly as a senior lecturer from the University of Oxford. At that time, a lecturer earns more than a member of parliament. Later, parliament stages a coup, and the results are that an MP wakes up to 100 times the income of a professor. Comrade Melusi notes that in Zimbabwe, it was not easy for people to eat in a hotel. He further notes that for those who eat in a hotel, have visitors or foreigners to foot the bills. At Chaminuka restaurant, Tad Longwe clears the bill for himself and that of Comrade Melusi. The international community clamps on Zimbabwe, a program called Structural Adjustment Program, that is SAP, since the country is undergoing very difficult economic times. African leadership is poor of innovative and creative ideas or skills that would spur economic growth among the African states. We have also a theme of corruption in the Fathers of Nations. Let's look at it quickly. Vitta, as the writer, also shares that corruption is endemic and less in Africa. The vice has disastrous effects on the continent's economies. It also affects the cohesion of communities and social contracts, which are vital pillars for building nations. Wars and organized criminal networks distracted the development of some countries. The networks control all the political and economic opportunities. Corruption is therefore a pandemic in African countries. Bribery is the order of the day in Banjul, Gambia. Ms. Fiona Mackenzie is stopped at ARC number 22. The police demands a bribe from her driver, an unemployed graduate. Mr. Tad Logwe, in his submission to Dr. Afolabi, says that Africa in its present state has two new arrivals: corruption and impunity. This affirms that corruption is a vice that is rampant in Africa, almost the oxygen of the African countries, metaphorically implied. In the elections held in Zimbabwe, Comrade Melusi and all other candidates together garner 1% of the total votes cast, while the ruler gets 99. After all, the challenges that precede the elections, thereby negatively painting the ruler and his government as unpopular. Additionally, it points to some unorthodox means that must have been used to get the 99% of the votes cast. Rigging, that's rigging rather, the orthodoxy that is being implied rather there is the rigging. Mr. Tad Longway, apart from clearing bills for their meals, he also gives Comrade Melusi a stock of American dollars and thereafter gives him a document titled Path Alpha. This quote-unquote gift could be construed as a means to wield influence on his decision. We have Tad Longway offers to buy a drink for Miss Fiona Mackenzie, a journalist with the Voice of America. This is the first time that they are meeting at the Seamount Hotel. The offer is meant to influence what Fiona will report about Path Alpha, which is being propagated by Mr. Tad Longway. Path Alpha is not on the summit's agenda. Mr. Tad Longway and his accomplices, through Dr. Folabi, wants it on the agenda of the summit. The means through which the proposal of Path Alpha will find itself on the agenda must be fraudulent and full of coercion. Dr. Afolabi thanks Nick Sentinel for having given him the tip of the trick that enabled him to put Path Alpha on the summit agenda. The trick in its exploration must be the coercion means and smells corruption. The method used to reach the decision of settling for Path Alpha or Way Omega is a method that is not very clear. The method attracts so many questions and petitions. It also sounds to be set to have predetermined results. This gives credit to the feeling that there must have been schemes and machinations to reach this predetermined outcome. There is a theme of betrayal. To some extent, Dr. Afolabi betrays the heads of state. He had been invited to provide a piece of advice on Way Omega strategy. Little are the heads of state aware that he is at the center of the rival group, Path Alpha, that is. He influences the introduction of Path Alpha on the agenda and also determines the outcome of the method committee. The leader of Libya betrays Engineer Tahir. When Engineer Saif Tahir comes back from Paris, France, the leader of Libya was his darling, quote-unquote, his specialty or cup of coffee, especially after coming up with the Feast of Allah, and supported it fully. After some time, the leader does away with this outfit and this sets him against Engineer Saif Tahir. The intellectuals or the professionals and freedom fighters have been betrayed by the leadership of the continent. All the four men across Africa, Professor Kimani, Comrade Melusi, Pastor Chamaka, and Engineer Tahir, after doing a lot of their mother countries' favor, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and Libya respectively, were and are still neglected. They are languishing in poverty and untold sovereigns. They have been left on their own. The image readers also get of African leaders is that of a coalition of confused and manipulated people. They have suppressed the voices of the civilians who are mere spectators as leaders destroy their sources of livelihood. The book is a bold portrayal of post-colonial African countries. It is a continent where the most learned are impoverished because society doesn't value knowledge. Instead, it cherishes ignorance and politicians. African leaders, the so-called fathers of nations, have betrayed the ordinary people. They are in the offices with the mandate of taking care of the populace, but tragically, this is not the case. The ruler in Zimbabwe betrays Comrade Melusi, whom they fought the white man with. When Zimbabwe gains her independence, the ruler dogs not remember to appoint Comrade Ngobile Melusi a minister. Instead, he only focuses on his Shona people and any dissenting voice silenced. Newborn Walomu betrays Professor Kimani, his former colleague at the university, after he marries Asio, Professor Kimani's wife. Asio betrays Professor Kimani, her husband. The predicament that the husband gets himself in is not his making. Professors at the University of Nairobi earn peanuts compared to the Member of Parliament. Secondly, it isn't the making of for their car to be grounded to necessitate their only daughter to travel using a public means and get involved in a grisly road accident. Rather, is the economic status of the good professor that brings about these challenge. Yoruba culture betrays Dr. Afolabi. There could have been a better engagement between the family and Dr. Afolabi before Nimbo was dropped at Dr. Afolabi's place as a second wife. For this brings about divorce between Dr. Afolabi and Pamela, his wife. Pamela betrays Dr. Afolabi. She does not listen to him. Instead, he hurriedly opts out of marriage and goes back to Boston, only to call after a week to tell him that she had filed for a divorce. Good learners, a very big blue thank you for watching right there. It has been Tabiga and Charlotte. Reach me through those tiny little details there, through my email and of course my contact down there. And above all, just want to tell you this: give it a thumbs up if you've gotten something interesting and useful through this particular work. Share it with good friends. Recommend good friends that you know that this work will be of value, benefit and significance. And most importantly, stay safe till I see you next time round. Cheers.